Well, welcome to Iup TV. Today, our daily edition of Inside Utah Politics. We appreciate you being here. Joined today by a couple of panelists to help us break down. Going to talk today a lot about Trump's first 100 days. Obviously, we've passed that benchmark today. And if you're listening to this, you're just into issues in our local community, national issues as well. So we appreciate you being here. Want to introduce you to producer Peter.
One moment.
Hold on. He's pushing the buttons.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
hi,
back
producer
here.
Peter. Hey,
Man in the chair.
I appreciate you getting dressed for us today.
Oh, listen. Yeah. I'm only my best football t-shirt.
You look really good today.
I got my basketball shoes on down below, but they can't see that.
You guys, Peter does such good work here. I could vouch for him all day long, but he always looks like he's just rolled right out of bed.
Yeah.
Like hair
Listen.
disheveled. He's not on TV very often. So.
I've been off camera so long. I have a brand to maintain. It's not going to change just because you put a camera right here.
And if I could do it, let's be honest, I would, but
listen,
clearly.
the beard will come in, but not much more change. Don't expect too much.
I love it. Okay, producer Peter's going to help fact check us today, get us details, things that we need to know. I want to introduce my panelists today, Adam Gardner, Rusty Cannon. Take a minute, introduce yourselves for people who don't know you.
Lindsay, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
My name is Adam Gardner. Like you said, I am a lobbyist in Utah.
The big L word.
The big L.
So I feel like that word has a connotation.
It does.
Yeah, but you just own it.
Like, I'm happy to be a lobbyist. I think it's a really fun job.
Yeah.
I've been around lobbyists when I worked in government, when I was an elected representative. I represented West Jordan in the state legislature. I worked with lobbyists all the time. Lobbyists are an important part of the process.
Yeah.
They represent businesses, companies, individuals up at the legislature.
And people inside politics don't have a problem with lobbyists. It's the notion of like big bad lobbyists.
They have a
who
problem
are-
with some lobbyists.
Yeah.
But I liken it to most careers. I would say you have probably 10% of any career that's a bad apple. Lobbyists are the same.
Sure.
So you have really great ones, some really bad ones. And the legislature figures out pretty quick which ones they don't want to talk to.
Let me also point out that the lobbyist lounge at the Capitol is like the nicest room in the entire
not a bad spot.
building.
I have no idea what either of you two are talking
Perrier's
about.
and just snacks galore, and they get treats, they get fed. The media lounge. Okay, the media lounge is a dungeon from 1970 that has
Awful.
not been
Awful.
touched. It's
We
awful.
pay
I
a
went
lot
to-
of money
Yeah, I
for
was gonna
that.
say, it's not
Listen,
free.
well, first of all, it's in the basement.
It is not free.
It's in the basement where they print the bills, okay?
Yeah,
and you
so
have to
is
go.
the lobbyist
you
lounge.
have to go
You have
down
no
a
idea what we
corridor
go
past
through.
security, and then you have to buzz into this room. It has 70s shag carpet, desks that haven't been touched by then. I don't know that there's internet
The
down
first
there.
time I went in
like-
there was stale ramen noodles
It's
just
so-
sitting on a desk.
We have
so
shag
gross.
carpet for this studio that
Liz,
we
they
chose.
can't
Yeah, what's
see
the
that.
problem with
They
shag?
Shag
can't
carpet's
see that.
great.
And I'm going to point out that lawmakers are currently shuffling Capitol spaces, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to propose to any of our good senators and representatives out there that we run a bill to fix up that media room.
We'll edit that out.
Who do I
Yeah.
lobby? Who do I lobby for that? All right, Rusty, go.
Yeah, thank you, Rusty Cannon. I'm the president of the Utah Credit Union Association. Previous to that, president of the Utah Taxpayers Association. So I've been hanging around with guys like Adam for over a decade now.
And one
So-
thing I'll point out too is we got to know each other because he was the chairman of the Davis County GOP.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a
And
long
I
time
was
ago.
the secretary. This
That's
was
right,
like
you were my
15
secretary,
years
yeah.
ago.
Okay.
In 2011.
So
Yeah.
a lot of fun. I've known Rusty for a long time.
So much fun. Well, I'm excited you guys are here. Thank you so much. Let's dive in. Trump's 100 days wrapped up this week. There's been a lot said about these first 100 days. Want to take a look at the poll numbers first and foremost. Producer Peter, if you can pull those up for me.
Yeah, let me get that for us here. So the main thing I want to run through is that you're going to hear a lot of numbers as far as Trump's first 100 days. There's a lot of, obviously all the pollsters sprung into action to get some kind of line on this, analysis on this. We have two that we mainly reference here at ABC4, which is ABC Ipsos poll, which is the big bad one for Trump. That's where you hear that that 39% approval rating, that worst in the history of presidential approval polling number. But then
Yeah.
our parent company Nexstar commissions the Emerson College poll, which does tend to hew a little more conservative. So it's actually a pretty even split on approval, disapproval. It has Trump 45 approval, 45 disapproval, remainder undecided. But it's the issue polling, I think, that's really shocked to me. Let me find that for us here. But he, I think, has seen really precipitous slides in trust on the economy and trust on immigration.
Yeah.
Which I think, if you thought of as, what were the marquee issues for Trump in the election, what were the things that helped him win, it would have been those. So, let me cue that up.
Yeah, as
here.
he's getting that ready, Adam, I'll just have you break it down. What do those numbers say to you?
the worst approval numbers of the first 100 days of any president in the last something like 80 years. That's a problem. So we've had the stock market tumble and crash. The market is telling Donald Trump, do something different. And now we see after the first 100 days, the people are telling Trump, do something different. But again, going back to that James Carville adage from Bill Clinton's campaign in 1992, it's the economy, stupid. If the economy is great, he's going to be doing great. Approval numbers are going to be higher than 50. If the economy is bad, he's going to be doing bad. It's very rare, though, that you can point to a president's actions and say, it's 100% your fault. They are responding directly to you.
Yeah, exactly. Often the president will take credit for or blame for how the economy is going, and they really sometimes don't have a lot to do with it. This is directly President Trump's fault on his just taking that straight line towards tariffs that has backfired. I mean, there's no good results coming from it yet. In fact, he backed off on it because the bond market started falling apart. You mentioned the stock market. Usually when the stock market falls apart, you have lowering of interest rates and they're rallying into U.S. Treasuries. Then Treasuries started falling apart. And that's when he actually started to shift and said, okay, we're going to pause them for 60 days. The market was telling him, listen, stop what you're doing.
Because Treasuries are the safe bet,
That's
right?
the safe bet around the world.
This is volatile, so we're going to go into a safer bet here. It's more long-term. And the market hated that too.
When that starts falling apart, you need to worry.
It's kind of the Trump style, though, to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks and then pull back on it, right? It's like this big hammer, and then he's like, oh, wait, countries maybe don't like that. Or,
no, he takes a sledgehammer
market.
to it. And a sledgehammer on tariffs. You know, there's a saying, act boldly and implement slowly.
Sure.
He acts boldly and implements immediately, at least as far as tariffs go. And it's been an unmitigated disaster as far as polling numbers. He needs to get a win out of this tariff mess in about 30 days, or I think he is.
What's
seriously.
a win?
Well, I think a win could be getting down to deals, as he likes to call them, somewhere before July, where we made these deals, we've backed off, and we've made these great deals, so we're going towards a zero or low tariff world. If that was the whole point of this, great.
Well, yeah, because that
but
is
if
the
not,
point.
then why'd we do all this?
Right. It's kind of the point he said he wanted, right, with the zero tariff situation. But I feel like sometimes, again, it's that come in so hot that, like, I think I heard him say the other day that he thought China was going to eat the tariff costs, right? They're at like 145% right now.
No one's going to do that.
And then you see Amazon and Temu and Shein and these companies starting to put the tariff price on the products. Yeah. And so it's like...
But you saw he came in and pressured Jeff Bezos to make sure they don't do that.
Right.
And so Jeff Bezos had Amazon pull back.
Right.
But we do that on the state level all the time.
Yeah.
Every time I purchase anything, it says... tax,
here's your tax.
Sales tax,
yeah.
and it tells me what it is. I would love to see a tariff tax.
Yeah,
and he's saying
not
that's
a tariff
bad
tax. You mean the line
the
item?
the line item
tariff.
That is a
I
tariff.
would not love to see a tariff tax. But you're right. I mean, Yes, I think that's a win. But he said we have deals going with over 200 countries right now. We don't even have 200 countries in the world. So that's a problem.
Peter, how many countries are in the world?
Don't fact check that.
Just kidding.
I can confirm for us here it's about 195.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think.
Is he counting that McDonald Island with all the penguins as a country?
I think if you do that,
hey, a deal's a deal,
if you can't beat penguins, what are we doing?
A couple of small ones.
Right.
No, I think Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on I want to say it was CNBC claims that 200 number comes from. There are sub deals and deals that are going to affect specific companies. Yeah. So I think if we're going by that logic, we'll get thousands of deals by the time we're actually.
And I think that your point is awesome because Scott Bessent is the only person out there who is making the economy not completely collapse. If you just left everything to Howard Lutnick and Peter Navarro,
yeah, he needs to fire Navarro.
It would be garbage right now.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, biggest win, biggest loss. We sort of touched on it a little bit of the first 100 days in your mind.
Biggest win for me, immigration, the border. He has done amazing things on that as far as shutting the border down. You see that border crossings are not stopped, but close to stopping, and because he reversed the incentives. That was the problem with the Biden administration, is the incentives were all messed up. You wanted to get across the border because, hey, they'll release me, and then I'll probably never report. And so you're into the country. Once that incentive system is gone and people realize, well, likely if I even get across, I'll probably be sent back, all those things, it worked. And I think that's what the American people signed up for as far as immigration goes.
Okay, so I hear your point on border crossings down. You believe he's solved that. But do we have a messaging problem with the due process issues that we've seen thus far? Because again, if he's trying to solve that border crossing, fine. But what you have is it trickling down to communities who are afraid and scared and worried and hiding. And is that the message we should be sending while we try to fix this problem?
Well, I think they are getting off message because of a couple of specific instances. I don't know why the Trump administration is insistent on never saying they were wrong. Just admit we accidentally sent the guy to the wrong country, bring him back, give him due process, send him to another country. You know, there's plenty of evidence to say that the American people would support that. Why double down on this and just say, no, we're right?
Do politicians ever admit they're wrong?
But it's not just politicians, because to your point, when they were arguing the case in front of the courts, the Justice Department said, we goofed.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have done this. They
Yeah.
said it in court. And do you remember what happened? It wasn't like we were honest and told the truth. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, actually suspended that attorney and said, we do not admit that we are wrong ever. Because that's the mentality of the administration.
Yeah, I think
and a
that's
lot of
wrong.
times, you know what? That works. On immigration, on letting people into the country, we are not backing down. We are not putting up with any of these safe cities and what's the word I'm looking
Sanctuary
for?
cities.
Sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
We're not putting up with that.
Yeah.
And so this hard line, it works some ways, and then other ways it's just terrible. It throws off, like you said, the messaging.
I want to read this line from the Utah Compact.
Lindsay, if I could actually,
please.
I wanted to take a moment here to introduce a clip from our ABC interview with President Trump. Terry Moran, of course, spoke to him earlier this week to that issue of messaging on immigration and with due process. Here was how the president responded when Moran pushed on the issue of hearings for those detained on immigration proceedings.
That under our law, every single person who gets deported gets a hearing first to make their case.
Well, are we talking about people that are citizens of our country or not?
No, you're not deporting citizens at this point.
Well, let me ask you, did they get hearings when Biden allowed 21 million, because I think the number is 20 million people to flow into our country? You had 21 million people that came into our country through a stupid open border.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the tact he took when asked about immigration proceedings. He goes on there when asked, do you think, we could be doing more to give people due process to assuage some of these fears? President's response was, well, if we gave, a 1-week court case to every one of these 20 million people in the country, we'd never get anything
Well,
done.
not a court case, but a hearing.
Exactly.
Right? We
yes.
don't sit down with a trial and a jury for every single person.
And immigration judges are under the purview of the DOJ. They're not judges under the court system under Article 3.
Right. So, I mean, what do you make of his comments? Like, again, to the point that maybe
did
we
he
have a
answer
messaging
it?
problem.
Well, I think he has somewhat of a point on them coming into the country. However, that doesn't hold water when you flip it to, well, we have a process when you get them out.
Yeah.
They do, and sometimes these will be expedited hearings under certain circumstances, but it is a hearing. And do the hearing, get them out. I don't know why they're just doubling down on this messaging, where I think a winning line would be, yeah, we'll give them their due process. It'll be quick, it'll be brief, it'll be fair, and then they're out.
And we'll
I
prove
agree.
that he shouldn't have been here in the first place.
And I'd like to point out that in there, when he said, are you going to have due process, he said, you mean for citizens? Like for citizens,
Right.
we give due process? That's not what the Constitution says. It says
Right.
persons,
Yeah.
not citizens. And so, yeah, if you're on American soil, that's how I take comfort in knowing that when police round you up to send you back to wherever you came from, that
Go
you
back to where
actually
you
have
came from,
you
Rusty.
have a fair shot, a
Yeah.
fair trial. Like
Yeah.
that's the entire purpose of the American system.
Correct.
So part of the Utah Compact, which was a document, I think it was 2010, right, reaffirmed in 2019, which basically state leaders came together and said, here's how we're going to handle this tough immigration issue when this is a federal issue. There's not much we can do to change immigration law. However, we want to make sure when we change policy at the state level, we're following these principles. One of the direct quotes from that compact was, quote, the way we treat immigrants will say more about us as a free society and less about our immigrant neighbors. Are we upholding the standards of the Utah Compact right now?
Well, I think we have to define what we're talking about in regards to immigrants, because I know the administration has done a lot in focusing on those that have previously committed crimes and then been let out of prison for one way or another. They're going after those folks. And do I think they need to be treated with kid gloves? No, I don't. I think there are a lot of criminals that have come into this country because they see free access to commit crime here, and they're not going to be punished for it. Don't treat them with kid gloves. Send them out. I don't care how we treat them. I think
Except
they
for
have
due process.
I think
which
they
you
need to
said
have
earlier,
due
right?
process, but I
Yeah.
don't think we need to coddle them or wait or even, hey, violent criminal, let's give you time a week to pack up and say goodbye to your family. No, get them out.
Right.
There are those that are actual immigrants to this country that have come here legally, waited in line, so to speak. Yes, they absolutely should be treated with respect and as part of the American system, because that's what we're built upon, is a nation of immigrants. I also think having an immigrant nation is important to our economy. We're losing a lot of people, or we have a low birth rate, and the only way to grow is to have immigration in this country. Let's do it legally. Let's make it easier. Congress, I think, has been derelict in actually codifying any changes that would help this process. And the reason is because Republicans see it as a great issue to run on, and Democrats see it as a great issue to run on. So they want to tag the other side with not doing enough, and they both end up winning and the country loses.
Correct. That's a good way to put it. One thing I was thinking about on your question, there's been talk about, local authorities cooperating with ICE on these detentions
Right.
when they come get it. There was an example last week where a judge of all people in Wisconsin, I think if the state was right, literally helped somebody evade ICE, and she was kicked off the court and is being prosecuted for this. I don't know why somebody would do that. There is not a better silver platter issue for someone to hand to Republicans or others that are really fired up about activist judges than for what she did. She literally helped a guy who was accused of putting two people in the hospital evade the ICE folks out in the hallway. They ended up getting him on the outside, and now she's being prosecuted for this. But if either side was looking for an example to gin up their base on that issue, that was just handed to them on a silver
But do
platter.
you think when people say activist judges, though, they're talking more about rulings that come down that try to legislate from the bench, so to speak, more so than this is a very egregious and specific example of whatever we're calling it, aiding and abetting, if you will, right? When we say activist judges, don't we refer more to rulings that tend to create policy or take a certain side as opposed and stop a bad law?
I think if I could chime in, to me, that's kind of the beauty of the term as a political tool, right? I think you can apply it to rulings that the administration finds unfavorable, but I think you can use it here as well, because it stands in for the idea. I think that you hear a lot of people in the Trump camp talk about that there are these longtime people in government who are not interested in facilitating the agenda. I get what he's saying here, because I think it provides the administration this really favorable framing when they're complaining about what the courts have done to the agenda, complaining about all these injunctions stopping his immigration actions. You can then point to, as a Trump guy, to say, hey, these judges
And
are
look
literally,
at what this judge did.
Yeah.
they're literally preventing people from being deported. They're hiding them from ICE. So I do see the point, and I think they have a lot of leeway to make that argument.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. Okay, let's switch to Doge if we can. How effective has Doge been in your mind?
I'll let Adam go first on that one.
Okay, I love the idea of Doge. I love the idea of someone going in there and just ripping the place apart. We're too bloated. We're too fat. Let's clean it up. So I was really excited about Doge. And I've even seen Congressman Blake Moore, he started the Doge caucus. And I've heard him say, I started this when I thought it was a really good idea. And so we were all pretty excited about it, I think, as Republicans who wanted drastic cuts in government. But what we saw was $155 billion in cuts, which I don't think is a ton. I was hoping it would be more.
Because we have trillions in
Sadly,
debt.
We have
that's
right?
not a
trillions
lot of
in
money
debt.
for the government.
In a government that refuses to go after entitlements and reform Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and the Highway Trust Fund, if you're not going after those things that are 75% of the budget, it's like we're going after the amount we spend on toner, printer toner in a business. That's not what's going to solve the problem. My problem is, in the first 100 days, we said $155 billion in cuts. I think that is inaccurate because Congress passed a continuing resolution that continued the Biden levels of atrocious spending into this year, and we're actually spending $200 billion more than we did in the first 100 days of the last administration.
So it's our spending issue, not our cutting issue.
We need to cut more. If we are going to cut, we need to reform the things that actually are costing us a ton of money. The Department of Education is bloated, and I don't like it, and I want to get rid of it, and I would love to have those savings. That is not where our savings are going to come in. it's going to be from reforming entitlements, something that we are not talking about and something President Trump has said he refuses to do.
I think a couple of positives you can take from Doge, and I think just a couple. Number one, transparency. I think that's been the big thing. For me personally, just at least learning what USAID was giving money to me was shocking. And just at least having the conversation to see, wait a minute, we're giving money to what? And having those pulled back for the most part, whether it's in future appropriations or if it's immediate, I'm not quite sure. But at least we had the conversation, and if we root that out, great. The other thing, the other processes that have been brought up that were just so backwards for the government to have those conversations, I think that's the win. But as Adam was saying, it really takes Congress to do this in the long run. I heard Blake Moore talk about that of like, okay, this is great what Elon is doing, but this is really going to be us that needs to pull the weight here and get this done. He was right. And we still have to see if that actually happens.
But then there's the issue of Elon in general being the one to do this, an unelected person coming in and, like you say, you like the sledgehammer to it, but I want to push you both. If this was the other way around, and this was a Democrat administration who was using someone, whoever it is, doesn't matter, the latest boogeyman, to come in and slash the government, you can't tell me Republicans wouldn't be up in arms about that.
I always likened it to if George Soros were to come in under the Biden administration and have the reign of the place.
It would be pitchforks in the streets.
I would be pretty upset.
Yeah.
But you know what? If he cut something, maybe I'd be
Do you want the
excited.
budget cut that badly that you're willing to let?
Let's do it. Let's hammer it, But I'd be worried that, the next administration could come in and say, hey, we're going to cut 50% of the Defense Department. And I would freak out about that. So, yeah, I get your point.
I mean, if you look at history, the president can get advice from whoever they want. And whether it's George Soros or Elon Musk and either side getting really, really upset, for the most part, the president can take advice from anybody that they want. As uncomfortable as it would be. And I've tried to remember that, although I'd probably be a big hypocrite. If it was George Soros, I'd be pretty angry, that type of thing.
I know you would.
But I just don't want my hypocrisy being called out on the show.
Absolutely.
I'd rather just make a point.
That's what I'm here
for. Thank you. But the president can take advice from whom they choose, even though it gets on our nerves.
Yeah. Very interesting. All right, Rusty,
folks, I'm going to have to say we're going to have to call it time-wise here. The one thing I would like to introduce before we get off air there, something that was called out in the ABC interview with Trump is that the original target figure for Doge was about $2 trillion, then got down to $1 trillion, and then there's $150 billion is the latest number.
So they got in there and they were like, we're going to cut all this. And they were like, well, this is harder to cut than we thought.
Well,
and then we're going to have
we
to
got 5%.
Yeah.
That's a win.
That's a win.
Listen.
Hello.
So you're
The
saying
awareness-
I've got a chance.
The awareness is there. We're bloated.
The
Okay?
conversany started. I guess
Yes.
if I try to put a positive spin on it, but that is a paltry sum compared to the beginning figures.
Well, and then the question comes: how many billions of dollars can we actually stop from being spent when it comes time to talk to Congress about what we can get done here? Whether you want to point the finger at Mike Johnson or the Democrats or so on and so forth, we're just going to have to see
Reform
how that all
entitlements
plays out.
past the Trust Act.
There you go.
But
That's the
don't
soundbite,
touch
folks.
defense spending, or there will be pitchforks in the streets.
Finally, someone who gets me.
All right. But on that note, folks, we are going to have to wrap up for today. Lindsay, Rusty, Adam, thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you all next week.